it seems to be a thing in Latin America, mocking Jesus Christ, his crucifixion. So you see a lot of memes showing Jesus Christ like on the crucifix, like in sexual positions, just total, like, if you're Christian, it'd be, complete blasphemy. And all those memes were allowed.
I bet they wouldn't allow that for Muhammad. Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was the voice of Ryan Hartwig, the Facebook whistleblower. And before we begin the interview with Ryan, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor. Now, collagen makes your skin healthy and it gives you a youthful look. You already know that. It strengthens nails, hair, teeth, and even gut health. Collagen maintains muscles, improves joints, and does much more. But did you know to reap the maximum benefits you have to consume 5 different types of collagen? There's actually 28 different types of collagen, but only 5 are the most important for you to remain healthy. 1 scoop of ageless multi-collagen has the scientifically correct proportions of all 5 proteins you need to maximize your benefits from collagen. With ageless multi-collagen, your body doesn't have to work so hard to break these proteins down, ensuring that the collagen doesn't go to waste. There's 10 grams of protein per serving. It's odorless and tasteless, so you can add it to the drink of your choice. No artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, or sweeteners. So get yourself a bag of ageless multi-collagen. I highly recommend it. And as an added bonus, if you order today, they'll give you free shipping, free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, and a free report on the 14 foods for amazing skin. You'll also be feeding a hungry child. For every order of ageless multi-collagen today, they'll donate a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor. If you order today, you can save up to 51% off ageless multi-collagen. And rest assured knowing the company offers a 60-day money-back guarantee, even on empty bags. So go to healthwithsgt.com and order today. I'll leave that link below. And welcome back, friends. Thank you so very much for finding us on YouTube and pushing play. Are you fed up yet? Are you tired of the deck being stacked against us? I'm talking to you, conservatives, libertarians, Christians, the American people in general. We're going to talk about that and so much more today. The stacking of the deck by Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I've got on the line the Facebook whistleblower, content moderator. He speaks fluent Spanish, and his name is Ryan Hartwig. How are you, Ryan? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for getting in touch with Project Veritas and blowing the whistle. I mean, it's time for Americans to stand up for the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights, and I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of painstaking work. Filming for many months with a hidden camera. But yeah, Project Veritas, they had my back the entire time. They're a great organization, and so I'll plug this at the end as well. But if you are an insider, if you are working for big tech or anywhere else, Veritas tips at protonmail.com. I just send an email to them. They're always looking for more sources of information. So. But yeah, I worked for Facebook as a content moderator for about 2 years. I was contracted by Cognizant, and if you saw the video, it came out about 2 weeks ago. It showed just blatant bias against conservatives and against white people, basically. So yeah, that's a quick summary of it. We can get into more detail.
I think the biggest problem that people are having with all of this censorship, Ryan, is essentially the fact that public discourse is now being controlled by these companies. YouTube is really controlling the discourse by propping up the speech they like or shadow banning the speech or interviews, in my case, that they don't like. Same thing is going on with Google and Google searches, and obviously the same thing is going on at Facebook and Twitter. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about Facebook and their election training deck. As we look forward to November and the elections, I think it's fascinating to have learned from you in one of the interviews you did that Facebook gave y'all an election training deck, which to me is kind of mysterious. What was the angle with their election training deck?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating topic, Sean. And elections were very important to them. So a main reason why So before 2016, there weren't that many US-based content moderators. So Cognizant got the contract in 2017. So after the 2016 elections, they hired a bunch of people in the US, which is obviously more expensive. And they had us, moderating content in the U.S. So the reason they gave is, because of election fraud in 2016, like Russian interference, whatnot. So they wanted a better handle on what was going on. So that was the justification they gave. Now, I was on Rebel News Media last week in Canada talking about some of the election training decks that they were given, that they gave us for Canada. So I started in March of 2018 as a content moderator. I was hired as a bilingual content moderator. As you mentioned, I do speak fluent Spanish. I lived in Mexico City for a couple of years. I have a bachelor's degree in Spanish linguistics. So I monitored the 2018 Mexican presidential election, and so I saw all that, and they gave us guidance on different things. And I have some notes here, and I have there's certain things I can't release. I can't release certain things. Project Veritas has the video, and so but I will tell you what I witnessed. So there's different countries here. So not only, you think, okay, Canada, US, Latin America, but it goes beyond that. So it goes to Poland. I have a list here of training decks that I viewed and documented. Mm-hmm. So we have Afghan elections, we have Albania, Austria, and this has information like the number of voters, the voting breakdown from the last elections, the current prognosis. It also advises us content moderators to raise up any trends, flag any trends or hate speech towards certain candidates, and send that straight to Facebook.
Well, let me ask you something, though. That's interesting. So hate speech against certain candidates. So, for instance, in this country, in the United States, if conservatives came up with a meme that was clever and applicable to Hillary Clinton, that mm-hmm. might be flagged and considered hate speech by the moderators at Facebook. Whereas if the same type of meme, a negative meme about Trump, was put out by liberals, perhaps that wouldn't be flagged. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. One example. Now, they're constantly changing the policy. I'll give you one example of an actual meme or image that was allowed. Okay, and let me try to find it here in my notes.
Yeah, so while you're looking, too, it calls to mind what went on in Canada with the slings and arrows that were coming Faith Goldie's way. And I just wonder how that stuff was treated on Facebook. I think she's on the hate figure list.
Yeah, that is correct.
For Facebook. Faith Goldie.
Yeah, Faith Goldie's on the hate figure list, and she's literally on the same list as Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, so a beautiful, intelligent, empowered, conservative woman in Canada running for office, slandered, libeled at every turn, marginalized at every turn, probably all A-OK on Facebook.
Yeah.
But not her speech.
That's correct.
Not her speech.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can't even post a video of her or mention her name at all, praise, support, or represent her, or it'll get taken down. So you mentioned a meme about Hillary Clinton. So here's an example of a Trump meme that was allowed. So there was a Trump meme showing, it was kind of a cartoon image showing Trump basically suiciding himself, like shooting himself, like blowing his head off. And they said, hey, this meme is resurfacing again. It depicts a meme of Trump shooting himself. And per the policy, this would be an ignore. Job can be found in the link. So you have a depiction of suicide, and you'd think that suicide would be important, but for the sake of political discourse, they're allowing a cartoon image of Trump shooting himself. So, some 10-year-old kid who's depressed could be on the internet, and they could see this meme about suicide. I don't think any instance of suicide or reference to it, either cartoon or imagery, any kind of imagery, should be allowed. But here they are making allowances for such.
I guess it gets tricky regarding elections because I'm not sure why an American company would need to have election training decks for its employees in any country, much less our own. We just want free and open elections. And to me, it seems like there's such a bias at Facebook and inside these big social media tech giant companies that they want to sway the elections. Mm-hmm. So it's just ironic that they have a hate speech policy. And the way the hate speech policy seems to be enforced is to marginalize, censor, bury, or shadow ban those of us who are using our speech to talk about liberty, to talk about Christian values, to talk about borders, to talk about sovereignty of our nations. That's all considered hate speech by these companies, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So the hate speech policy is very broad. So, and they've made some adjustments to it. They've allowed some in the last year or so since the civic audit from John Kyle, former Senator John Kyle. They've allowed more types of hate speech. So if you're referencing a specific event, like hey, if you're like hey on 9/11, Muslim terrorists did such and such, like that's okay now. But before it wasn't. But one thing that still is kind of questionable and gets taken down a lot is discussions about immigration. Because if I say, hey, keep Canadians out of the United States, that's technically a violation of exclusion, tier 3 of the hate speech policy. So, yeah, some of these basic conversations about politics that relate to immigration are out of bounds per Facebook.
All right. Well, so we know that, Alex Jones was banned from Facebook, Roger Stone banned from Facebook, Faith Goldie, Tommy Robinson are considered hate figures. Let's talk about the bullying policy. And you sent me an example of Caitlin Bennett. Now, this poor girl's being run through the ringer by the left for daring to stand up for the Second Amendment and being an outspoken conservative female, a white conservative female. Let's talk a little bit about the bullying policy as it pertains to Caitlin Bennett. You sent me something, and why don't you lead us into it?
Yeah, so Caitlin Bennett's a very prominent figure. She's known as the AR-15 girl, and she basically, so she's been targeted by the left. When she shows up at college campuses, she gets attacked, assaulted. So yeah, there was a meme that was trending that showed someone. It didn't show their face. Someone face down, passed out, with feces coming out. And so that's Caitlin Bennett right there. So there's a photo. If you search Google like Caitlin Bennett, do it for states. You have the article there. Pooped pants. So
yeah, this rumor about, so it's based on a picture. You can't see the face of the female who's passed out. Mm-hmm. And so the left is trying to sell it as Caitlin Bennett, and this is all over the internet and probably completely supported by Facebook, correct?
Yeah. And now if you knew it was her, if it was actually her on the ground, then that would be allowed. She is a public figure. But since we don't know, there's a specific policy at Facebook that says if you can't fully see the face of the person to determine if they're a public figure, you should default to treating the person as a private individual. So you really don't know from that image if that's her or just some person who looks like Caitlin Bennett.
Yeah, and I don't want to show it, but here's the thing. Now, I don't think that is Caitlin Bennett. I swear, I think I've seen that picture years ago, and whether or not that's the case, I guess I can't recall specifically, but Facebook ought to default on getting that image off the internet, assuming that that's not Caitlin Bennett, because the trauma being done to the person who it is, who probably knows that's her, is significant, and probably Facebook would be culpable and liable for damages if that person wanted to sue Facebook. Perhaps, I don't know. But I mean, they really ought to default on getting rid of that image, but they allow it because it's going after a conservative.
Yeah, and their policy specifically states exactly what you said. It says, how do I treat an attack towards a depiction of a public figure and a private individual if I'm unsure who is being targeted? If you can't establish who the target is from the context, tend towards protecting the private individual. So we're supposed to default to private individual, but they gave an exception and said, hey, if we think this is Caitlin Bennett, allow this meme of someone with feces coming out of their backside, which is despicable.
Yeah, it just I get goosebumps when I talk to people like you, and I think about the fracture of our culture at this point, the fracture in our society, this battle between good and evil, because again, they malign our speech. YouTube does to me too all the time. They shadow ban my stuff constantly. Twitter's now doing that to me as well. And what do I talk about? I talk to people like you about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's no wonder these people also now hate Mount Rushmore. All right, let's talk about Greta Thunberg. certain protections for Greta. And, I didn't care for that whole hashtag retarded thing that was going around
Yeah.
regarding her because I have a son on the spectrum,
Hmm.
and kids do need to be protected. But it does seem to me that Greta gets special protections, whereas any other conservative, I mean, we can point to minor conservatives, when I say minor, I mean below the age of 18,
Yeah.
conservatives that started to build traction on YouTube and their channels got terminated. Right?
Hmm.
So Greta gets special protections because she stands for climate change and carbon credits and getting rid of natural gas and gasoline to power our cars. And essentially, she's a pro Agenda 21 figure. Special protections from Facebook?
Yeah, so she did get special protections, and it's interesting you note the spectrum there, the autism, because that is mentioned in one of the posts. But basically, Facebook told us. So this was trending when she went to the UN or whatever, and Trump tweeted, "Oh, she's a wonderful, happy person." And so Facebook said, "Hey, if it says hashtag retarded, delete that no matter what. Like delete that across the board." Um, so they reference also, so under a policy called cruel and insensitive, you can't mock or make fun of someone like with a meme who has a serious disease or disability. And they added autism to that list 6 months prior to this. Um, and a quick side note, this would also protect, for example, if you're making a meme mocking Hillary Clinton, who in 2016 was falling off downstairs, that could now include her. So it can be applied in a lot of different ways. But with Greta, since she's publicly known to suffer from autism, the text overlay gives us further context that she's being mocked for her disability. So if you're mocking her and you're insinuating her disability, then that would cover that policy. So there could be a meme that's not referencing her autism, and that's I mean, it should be okay. Now, they do have protections. Facebook does have protections for minors, and they've tightened those restrictions and made it, try to protect minors more who are public figures. But they do differentiate between public figures who purposely put themselves in the public eye and those who are inadvertent public figures.
Mm-hmm.
So she's purposely, becoming a public figure. So generally, if you call them certain, you can't call a minor a hoe or make a claim about sexual activity. But calling them, let's see, who's a 15-year-old public figure. Anyways, if you call like Barron Trump an idiot, like it's still going to be allowed because he's a public figure, even though he's a minor. So yeah, what's really fascinating about this, Sean, is that they really didn't want her to be called retarded, and what they did, it's called a proactive pull. So they pulled the any instance of hashtag retarded or retarded, and they send that to our queue. So it was a priority. So instead of me reviewing, taking down graphic violence or child porn, they said, hey, our priority is taking down hashtag retarded. Mm-hmm. So we did that. So it's just a priority. I didn't see any example ever in my 2 years there where they took a right-wing person who was being attacked and tried to give them additional protections. It seems to be only people on the left.
I think you said, so 6 months prior to Greta coming on the scene, they included autism as one of these protected things. Are you suggesting in any way that they knew Greta was going to be coming on the scene? Do you say I'm sort of a conspiracy guy that way? I mean, obviously, they put her on the world stage, and that took some planning and timing. And the next thing you know, she's at the United Nations saying, "How dare you?" and putting the world on call because we have the audacity to use fossil fuels. Any idea about that?
I don't think so. But expanding, I mean, basically the action they took was expanding that list of what's covered under cruel and sensitive. So basically, the broad effect of that change would just to be less memes. Less memes would be on the platform, would be able to be shared, or those memes would be limited in their distribution. Mm-hmm. So.
It is funny, though. The Supreme Court has ruled that there's really no such thing as hate speech. There's just free speech. But when it comes to these big social media tech giants, they embrace the left's definition of hate speech, which, again, usually just targets the right, conservatives, libertarians, Christians. Did you find any specific persecutions that you could point to of Christian or conservative speech when you were a moderator?
Yeah. So when I was in the Spanish queue and Latin America queue, we would see memes constantly. It seems to be a thing in Latin America, um, mocking Jesus Christ, his crucifixion. So you see a lot of memes showing Jesus Christ like on the crucifix, like in sexual positions, just total like if you're Christian, it'd be complete blasphemy. And all those memes were allowed.
I bet they wouldn't allow that for Muhammad.
No, and like because no, literally, if you wear if there's any kind of religious symbolism or uh, wardrobe, that's included in the hate speech policy for religion. So if there's a meme showing someone who's it's not even labeled, not even mentioned with words, it's called visual hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Muslims are protected. So I think there's a double standard. Christians being targeted, conservatives being targeted. As far as conservatives being targeted, we have a list, actually, a bullying slang list. And basically, and I talked about this in previous interviews, but let me give you some more phrases that I haven't discussed yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked hard for you, Sean. I tried to get some content here that hasn't been in my other interviews. So.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, just so you know, a little background when it comes to the election training deck. Now, you remember the whole Russiagate BS regarding Trump. I was on a list. SGT Report was on a list printed by the Washington Post and I think put out there by the Southern Poverty Law Center, suggesting that my website and I think 600 others were suspected of being Russian agents, right? So when we talk about these lists and being targeted by the left, there's tangible evidence of that, right? So getting back to the idea of election meddling, I think they meddle in the elections and then they blame us for being Russians meddling in the elections. It's completely bizarre land.
So this slang list, bullying slang list, basically, we come across a lot of terms on a daily basis, and Facebook wanted to give us clarification. Hey, how do I action this? So if on Facebook, and I call you Sean, I say Sean's a Nazi, Sean's a Trump humper, right? And you directly report that. When I'm reviewing that content, that report, I see, hey, Sean reported this. That's called a direct name and face match. So I can take more things down. If you're directly reporting it, I can take a lot more things down because it's actually you that's reporting this content, this someone calling you names, right? So in this list, there's about 10 items I have on this list. There's a lot more than that. There's probably like 100 total. So the only thing that's kind of fair is if you call someone a Trump tard, that gets taken down. So if I call Sean a Trump tard and you report it, okay, it gets taken down. But what stays up is if I call you a Trump humper, a Nazi, if I call you a pedophile, that stays up. If I call you a racist or a sexist, that stays up. So those attacks stay on the platform. On the flip side, let's say Sean let's say there's a guy named Sean who's a left SJW, right? And he's getting attacked by people on Facebook. And so if they call this Sean the SJW, if they call him a snowflake, gets taken down. If they call him a feminazi, gets taken down. Call him a libtard, gets taken down. If they call you a troll, that gets taken down, which I never really understood. Like calling someone a troll, that's anyways. But yeah, so you call this the SJW on Facebook a snowflake, a feminazi, then it gets taken down. So.
And that's considered hate speech?
That's a separate category. So this is under the bullying policy.
Oh, bullying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. God forbid we bully the left as they burn our cities down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then. And maybe this was above your pay grade because these companies are huge. And, I say that euphemistically.
Yeah.
But because these companies are huge. But is it possible? I think the answer is yes. But did you see any evidence of shadow banning? Did you see any evidence of gaming the system to bury the content of things that would have otherwise been trending? I truly feel that's going on in my case on YouTube, and I know it's now going on in my case on Twitter because my analytics fell off a cliff about 2 months ago after 10 years of organic month-over-month growth. So Twitter flipped a switch definitely regarding my
Hmm.
my Twitter account, and I suspect the same thing is going on at YouTube. Was that going on at Facebook in your view?
So I had the same conversation with Mark Walters from Armed American Radio, and this guy's on Facebook. He has roughly, like 90,000 followers or something like that. I've met other organizations recently who were telling me the exact same thing. That they, same thing, organic subscribers, and there's this trickle downwards of they're losing subscribers. Um, so yeah, I definitely think it's we know from third hand evidence and that it's happening. I'm not a Facebook engineer, so I didn't see any algorithms directly about that. But I will say that, like we were talking about with Greta, if they can put things in the queue, if hashtag Boogaloo is trending, Boogaloo is kind of a code word for like a civil war amongst the right. Um, so I flagged that example, raised it up. So it seemed like I was only flagging and raising things up about like right wing things. So hashtag Bulu, Greta Thunberg. So they pulled all those into our queue. So if they can put those in our queue and prioritize Boogaloo over child porn or graphic violence or suicide content, then what's to stop them from deboosting your content?
So the Boogaloo thing, I wasn't familiar with that. You mentioned it real briefly on our pre-call
Yeah,
here, and so that was a meme, in your view, or I guess factually, I didn't know anything about it, that was from conservatives or militia type groups saying that if Trump gets impeached, it'll lead to a civil
yeah.
war, and that got flagged for destruction. Meanwhile, child porn and pedophilia type stuff on Facebook, that's left
Yeah,
alone.
I'm sure they have ways to deal with that, and there might be some, AI that's handling at those things. So I'm not saying they're not proactively working on those things, but if you're paying a lot of money for 1,000 content moderators in the U.S. to review content, and you're having them review hashtag retarded, like where's your money? Why are you spending? Where is your money going? Um, but yeah, there's lots of and that's what we were doing basically was training the AI. That's what they told us we were training the AI. But yeah, I have an example of where I sent up at least so what I call them jobs. Like when I get a piece of content on my screen, I call it the job. So I sent like 7 or 8 examples with the job IDs of Boogaloo and Civil War. But of course, Antifa. It's specific. There's a post specifically about Antifa, and I can read that to you maybe about how Antifa is not a hate org. I think it's
Yeah,
funny how
yeah,
they work. Yeah,
yeah. Read that because our president actually thinks they're a terrorist organization, and I would tend to agree when they target people like Andy No and beat them alive in the street, and the police don't come to respond. It is a very violent organization. What does Facebook say?
so this is from a couple years ago. So they said, hey, in the context of there's going to be a protest on November 4th titled Trump Pence regime must go. And this protest is occurring in at least 9 cities. Okay, so it's organized, right? And then it says this protest is expected to span a couple of days, similar to the Occupy Wall Street protests. There have been unconfirmed links between this protest and Antifa. There will potentially be counter protesters and it might become violent. And then it says important callouts. Antifa is not considered a hate org. Look out for the following violations: coordinating harm and hate speech, share trends, and post questions in the comments below. So, hey, there's this organized protest. There's an unconfirmed link between this protest and Antifa. Remember, Antifa is not a hate organization.
Oh my gosh! So if there's any violence, it had to be the other side. It couldn't have possibly come from Antifa.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of
All
course.
right. Well, that actually leads us into our final category, our final discussion here about how Facebook treats quote unquote white power, which I hate. Every
Yeah.
time we hear anything from the mainstream media regarding conservative white people, they will generally try to make it sound racist and racist or nationalistic to the point of trying to make it sound like white power, right? How does Facebook treat white power versus black power per their own policy?
Yeah. So it's funny because I searched at one point, I was researching this and trying to see the difference of it. And at work, we have kind of an internal it's kind of like a little mini Facebook where we can search different terms and posts and try to get guidance. So I searched white pride and the search result returned a post about Gay Pride Month in June. And it gave me that post that we see in the video from 2 weeks ago. where straight white males are filth for not supporting LGBT, and that's allowed. So that's what happened when I searched white pride in our internal search tool.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so straight white. So yeah, if I search, so when I search Black Power in SRT Workplace, um, there's a clarification that says, is the slogan Black Power considered a violation under hate speech? No, Black Power is a slogan representing a movement in support of rights and political power for Black people. And then we had actually, you can ask questions. So someone asked a question in our work tool. They said, why is white and proud allowed, but proudly white not allowed? So white and proud is allowed if you say that, but proudly white is not allowed.
So white and proud meaning gay. If you're white and gay, is that what that is?
Oh no, no, it wasn't referencing homosexuality.
Okay.
It's just weird, like the wording. So if you say like, I think white pride is violating. Pretty sure white pride is violating. But it's just the way you phrase it is very, very weird. Like you can say, it's like that doesn't make any sense to me. White and proud is allowed, but proudly white is not allowed. So.
Well, it's like newspeak. It's like, it's so Orwellian. I mean, they're just destroying the language is really what they're doing effectively.
Yeah.
They're making people afraid to actually speak.
Right.
Destroying discourse, which brings us full circle, an American company controlling public discourse.
Yeah. So if you say, I am white, I am proud, white pride, that is violating. So they say, hey, content supporting white pride is violating as it is a hate slogan and has always been. So that's what so in the hate organization category, they have different slogans that are violating. So you have like obviously slogans from Nazi Germany that are violating, but if there's a phrase they're using, oh, that's a hate slogan. If you say like white pride, that's a hate slogan. So any reference to that is taken down.
Well, we'll just finish out here with current news, and maybe you could give us your thoughts on this. Civil rights advocates want Facebook to do more to combat hate speech and misinformation. This slippery slope into the abyss of no free speech at all is really accelerating, and I'm really ticked about it because YouTube announced, and Google, in January of 2019 that they were changing their algorithms to filter out what they call misinformation. Some of the gatekeepers that make those choices about what is misinformation, what is hate speech, and what is not are groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, which do not stand for many of the things conservatives or libertarians or Christians do stand for. So your thoughts on this? Civil rights advocates want Facebook to do more to combat hate speech and misinformation?
Yeah, and that's a really it's really fascinating. And real quick, just to go back for a second, and I'll we were talking about white pride, black versus black pride, how they treat that. I just want to make it clear, Sean. I stand against any form of racism. So obviously, yeah, I'm not. I oppose any kind of white supremacy, that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as do I, as do we all. Yeah. Well, look, we all want equal representation under the law, justice for all under the law. We want liberty, we want our free speech, and we want every race to be respected and every race to be respected.
Yeah.
That's essentially what libertarians want. We want less government, we want less authoritarian control, and we certainly don't want these big social media giants banning our speech, especially when our speech is related to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which protects everybody. That's the rub, man. That's the fly in the ointment.
Yeah.
These people don't want us talking about the very documents that protect all of us.
Right.
The founding documents of this country.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you.
Okay.
It's just insane how they flip the script, and anybody that stands up for their sovereign nation, and anybody that wants to stand up for little babies in the womb, anybody that wants to stand up for things that are very logical, suddenly they accuse us of hate speech.
Right. No, and to your point there. So yeah, I think it's really ironic that they're saying that Facebook's not doing enough to censor hate speech. And what's even more curious is the same day or the day after that my video came out 2 weeks ago, there was an article saying, it was all over the news, basically saying, all these advertisers, all these companies are pulling their ads on Facebook because Facebook isn't doing enough against racism. So I honestly think this might be kind of a ploy because because they're also saying, oh, Facebook, because Zuckerberg met with Trump once, so they're saying, oh, Facebook supports Donald Trump. So I think the media is just trying to confuse everybody. And yeah, that's the article there, the Facebook ad boycott organizers. So they want to do more to control hate speech and misinformation. And it's like, well, if you looked at my video and you looked at everything I documented, they're already censoring a lot of hate speech. I don't think it really, like if I say something really, really inappropriate or offensive, something super racist, it's going to get taken down on Facebook. So I think the media is just trying to, just confuse everybody. Like they want people to think that Facebook supports Trump, which is obviously not true. Yeah, it's media disinformation. I think that's what it is. And it's funny because there's a website called TheVerge.com, and one of the journalists there, Casey Newton, he actually did not an undercover, but he interviewed some people at my workplace, and he did an article in February of 2019 about how bad it was working there, and like, so here's another article that my work that I did with Project Veritas, and I went to his website, zero mention of the work we did. So I don't think the left wants what I did and what Project Veritas did to come out at all.
Well, I do appreciate you putting your career on the line, and I mean taking personal risk economically, at the very least, to blow the whistle and get in touch with Project Veritas. Do you have any regrets?
No regrets. It's been 2 weeks. I haven't gotten any death threats at this point. I've gotten some hate mail from coworkers. No, I think it's been no regrets at this point. I knew they kind of told me, hey, it's going to be a little bit crazy, and they gave me the decision. Project Veritas told me, hey, you can go public or you can stay in the shadows, and I decided to go public with my name and my face. No regrets. I was able to get some help from GoFundMe. Luckily, they didn't take away or ban my GoFundMe. But yeah, it's like, if you want to check out the link, it's GoFundMe.com/Facebook Insider. And every little bit helps. I'm currently unemployed. And then, if you're working in big tech or you see something going on that's not right, reach out to Project Veritas at veritastips@protonmail.com. And no regrets. It's been quite a ride the last couple of weeks doing media interviews, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate it, and I know you did an interview with Mark Dice, so he's got a big platform. Those of us that still have not been yet deplatformed, at least completely, by these big tech social media tyrants, we'd love to support you. So I will leave a link to your GoFundMe below. Guys, if you want to even just pitch in $5, if everybody pitched in $5, it would help Ryan fill the gap until he finds his next career move. And hopefully that will be with a God-fearing libertarian Christian organization of some sort. I don't know how many of those types of companies are left out there, Ryan, but I sure hope you land on your feet. I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And anytime you want to have me back, I'd be happy to.
Okay, well, the pleasure's all mine. I really do appreciate it. Guys, our guest has been Ryan Hartwig. Again, the GoFundMe page is below. He is the Project Veritas Facebook insider and whistleblower. And, if we all do our part, guys, if we all stand up and speak out against these tyrants, I mean, we can crush them in November. I think that's what they're mostly afraid of. I mean, they keep telling us Joe Biden is the front runner if the election was tomorrow. That's just absolutely inconceivable. The man can't string a sentence together. All right, Ryan, I'll shut up now. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right. You too. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate your support. A shout out to our patrons. You're very special people helping us stay in the fight for truth and real news. And for real news, guys, visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.
And if you hear the shouting, it's a group of demonstrators who've come. 9/11 was an inside job. Oh, get a life. Get a life. 9/11 was an inside job.